The flights from Kathmandu started arriving early. It wasn't long before I was joined by Kelly and Edwin. The three of us then set off on the well-trodden track towards Everest Base Camp. Bridges and snow-covered peaks were the order of business today. We also passed through some beautiful small villages. Arriving in Phakding for a late lunch, we had plenty of time to wander around the local area. Cattle are very common. These here are Yokio, which is a cross between a yak and a cow. We found a monastery up the road that had amazing views of the valley. We slept well in Phakding. After our first day together on the road to Everest, heading out of town, we were greeted by more Yokio, getting loaded up for the day of work. The Dingboche was going to be our companion for most of the day. We crossed it for the first time just out of Phakding. Edwin loved playing in the waterfalls, and he was amused regularly on this leg of the trip. Just before midday, we reached the entry gates to the Sagarmanthal National Park. This is the main park of Nepal and contains the almighty Mount Everest. Through the gates of the park, our walk continued along the Dingboche. The section of trail was one of my favorite of all time. The track meandered alongside the river as we approached the scarily high, Jiri suspension bridge. Before arriving at the bridge, we saw more feats of strength from the locals, carrying up to 100 kilograms on their backs. The locals carry more weight than a donkey up these hills. After crossing the Jiri suspension bridge, the views back down the valley were amazing. The trail started to take on a vertical aspect for the rest of the afternoon. Regular rest stops for us, where we sat in amazement of the locals carrying huge loads up this trail. Eventually we made it to the historic trading town of Namche Bazaar. The town was the original trading place between the Nepalese and the Tibetans. Now it is more of a tourist spot and a place to refresh and acclimatize before pushing on to Everest. Views from here were among the best of the trip. Huge mountains, waterfalls, and snow-covered peaks all around. Today was our first acclimatization day. we climbed to the amazing Everest View Hotel at the back of Namche Bazaar. The views from here were incredible. We then wandered down the hill to the town of Kumjung, where Sir Edmund Hillary spent so much time helping the locals. After lunch, we had the difficult job of walking back up the hill to Namche. The cloud closed in on us, making the walk very atmospheric. After enjoying the hospitality of Namche for a day, we set off today to Dingboche. The track is very well maintained, so walking was no problem. Stops were very frequent, with views like this all morning. We were blessed again with amazing weather, blue skies and mild temperatures. Getting closer to Everest now, and the Dingboche was getting stronger. The last climb to Dingboche is relentless. It didn't break us, but we were sure glad when we got to the top. Spending the night in Dingboche made us realize that we were getting closer to Everest. It was cold here, very cold. But the views were incredible. We could see Mount Everest down the valley, which was where we were headed today. There was a good opportunity for some tourist photos with the tallest peak in the world. We dropped down to the river again, this time the Lukla, which flows from Island Peak. More cattle on the trail too, but now they were full-blooded yaks, in place of the Yokio. As we continued up the valley towards Everest, we were treated to amazing views of Amadablam, which at nearly 7,000 meters, juts out of the landscape like a rugged pinnacle. The views today continue to amaze us, with wild yaks just grazing on the meadows all around us. We passed through the villages of Dingboche and Shomeri, before dropping back to the river for the last climb to Dingboche. We would spend another day here acclimatizing. We climbed the nearby 5,000 meters peak, which turned out to be the biggest test for me so far this trip. To make our efforts look small, today they were running the annual Everest Marathon. Our challenge was much more sedate, but just as much pain. We climbed the 5,000-meter peak known as Nangka Chang. This was perfect training for Island Peak, which we had a perfect view of. I underestimated how hard this was going to be, but the views made up for every strained breath.